Good afternoon. Mr. Vinovich, I'd like to start by directing your attention to some procedural questions about the investigative process at the Office of Congressional Ethics. Specifically, let's start here. When a complaint is filed with the office, is that complaint forwarded to the respondent?
The subject of the complaint?
Correct.
We don't have communication with a subject unless and until we initiate an investigation. So if we initiate, you have to have two board members to initiate an investigation. And if that happens, then the subject is notified of that.
So during the period of time, so the answer to the question then is, you do receive complaints that are not necessarily forwarded to the subject of the investigation, is that right?
Yeah, as the co-chair mentioned, we receive 58,000 complaints, so I don't believe we communicate all those to the...
When an investigation is initiated, is it your practice to always provide the investigative materials that you have, including any inculpatory or exculpatory information, to the subject of the investigation?
At the initial phase?
Yes.
The initial notice is just to the effect that, the OCE has initiated an investigation of you, and we make a request for information from the subject.
When the House Ethics Committee decides to bring forward an investigative subcommittee, does the Office of Congressional Ethics necessarily stand down if you have an investigation ongoing about the same person or subject?
Under the rules, upon request of the Ethics Committee, if the Ethics Committee can send us a cease and refer notice, asking us basically to conclude our investigation because they have one ongoing, and if that happens, then we would do that. Yes.
All right. And if the House Ethics Committee is already reviewing an allegation, does the Office of Congressional Ethics ever open an investigation as well in tandem to that already existing investigation?
Well, this kind of goes to the transparency issue. So the Ethics Committee could be doing an investigation unbeknownst to us or anyone else. So it is possible, yes, that the Ethics Committee could have an ongoing investigation and then we begin an investigation. Then it would... If
you are aware of an ongoing investigation by the Ethics Committee, would it be the practice of the Office of Congressional Ethics to also initiate a tandem investigation in some circumstances?
I can't think of an example of that during my tenure.
All right. I'd like to return Mr. Ashmawy to a line of questioning. The chairman was asking you some questions about some of your challenges during your tenure, and if I understood correctly, I believe one of your answers related to the extent that you had violated any ethical rules yourself during that time, it was inadvertent and not a purposeful thing. Is that correct?
If you're referring to the use of email after my assault, I thought I was within the bounds of the rules. It turns out I may not have been, and I accept responsibility for that.
Okay. So as we sit here today, you would acknowledge that some of that conduct by you during that time did, in fact, run afoul of some of the rules that would govern your conduct?
Certainly was determined. It was determined that way to be that way, yes.
All right. Would you also agree, sir, that your function as your role in this process and in this committee is, in fact, to be the subject matter expert on what the rules of professional conduct are that govern things like that? Is that not the type of thing that you assess when it comes to people who are the target of these allegations that come before your committee?
It is part of my job.
Now, let me ask this question going back to you, Mr. Vinovich. Are you aware of any circumstances where OCE staff gave a report to the press before providing it to the subject of an investigation?
No, I'm not. Occasionally our reports will appear in the press. When that happens, I always contact Omar. This happened recently with respect to a subject. He released a very limited aspect of the complaint for his own purposes, but no, I'm not aware of any releases by us or our staff.
Now, in the circumstance where you have issues with staff misconduct, are those issues required to be raised to the board?
Yeah, I mean, the only one that has happened during my tenure is the one that's being discussed here today, and it got a lot of attention from the board. Whether it's required, I mean, it got attention.
My time has elapsed. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.